Sega taking L should be no shock to anybody these days. If you guys have been paying attention to the news, Sega has been taking L after L after L, and now we have yet another L for the Yakuza franchise. So apparently we have an article here from Bounding Into Comics with a headline that reads, Yakuza franchise producer Masayoshi Yokoyama says he's worried about violence in video games and says it is imperative to think about the effects that this can have on players. Ladies and gentlemen, this man, I don't know if he went back in time to like the 1990s or the early 2000s where they were blaming video games for literally every violent act that happened in the country. Obviously, he's Japanese, but I do find it very interesting that now, all of a sudden, especially with a game like Yakuza, all of a sudden you want to talk about violence being a bad thing on players, and I find it very convenient and very interesting that this is coming out shortly after you got thousands upon thousands of stocks purchased in your company from a company like BlackRock. It's very curious. So let's get into this article from Bounding Into Comics. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Like the video to push this out into the YouTube algorithm, and consider subscribing to my manga channel. The links are in the description box below in my link tree. I would love to see you there. So it says, in doing his best impression of a reactionary 1990s era American politician, yeah, that's basically how it sounds, longtime Yakuza series producer Masayoshi Yokoyama has admitted that though he has no explicit proof to the fact, he believes that violent video game content is detrimental to the mental capacities of players across the board. Yes, this is a tried and true bullshit false argument that so many people have tried to adopt over history. I mean, I don't even know how many years that this argument has been debunked for. It's probably decades at this point, but they have been trying to blame video games for everything. Anytime a politician has nothing else to blame, no actual source to blame for whatever they're about to talk about to the public, they're going to pick video games, especially violent video games. So anytime there is a mass, bad thing that happens at school, anytime that somebody does something completely stupid, they're going to look into their history and they're going to blame video games. And now, apparently, the Japanese are doing it. And mind you, this is the Japanese, right? Have you seen some of the stuff that the Japanese come out with? It's heavily violent, right? Like, it's not even, I don't even know how this is even a conversation. But again, it's very curious that this person is making this particular statement at a time that they just received thousands of shares bought from their company by BlackRock. I find that to be very interesting. So it says Yokoyama, whose tenure with the franchise has seen him serve as a writer and producer on every entry save Dead Souls and the Project K duology, shared his thoughts on the topic of video game violence while speaking with the Japan Times regarding the difference in development philosophies between the Yakuza and Grand Theft Auto video game series. Beginning with a direct comparison between the two, Yokoyama recalled to the outlet's Mathis Sina that when it came to Yakuza's design philosophy, from the start, we decided not to have a game where you can hit people yourself. All fights start with a provocation from the opponent, and the hero never hits women. That's an absolute rule. Our approach is the opposite of GTA, he added. It's a completely different game. Well, listen, that's fine. Like, you can make that a thing, and that's perfectly fine. And if anything, that probably goes more in line with the Japanese culture anyway, right? Like the whole, like, I don't really know how to explain it, but I can see that going in line with the Japanese culture. But still, you're still being violent, right? Like, you still have an opportunity to fight in that game, and I'm sure not every single provocation should lead to a brawl, but you can still fight, you can still do that in the game. So it's still technically a violent game, at least by the definition. It may not be as violent as Grand Theft Auto, where you could literally beat up civilians for absolutely no reason and run people over just because, but still, you cannot say that your game is not violent, and then you cannot start blaming violent games for the way people act. That has been debunked time and time again. There is no correlation between the two. There is absolutely zero. All people will try to do is use that correlation to further their little personal narrative that they have against whatever issue that they're trying to talk about at the time. It says, in further detailing the differences between the two open world series, the producer then explained, from the beginning with Yakuza, we targeted a purely Japanese audience who actually go there, and we wanted them to say, ah, yes, that's how it really is. That's what I was saying. See, it's made for Japanese audiences, which again, nothing wrong with that, but it's made for a particularly different culture. It's not as aggressive. Japanese people as a whole are not as extroverted or aggressive like Americans. They're not. Even when the Japanese draw Americans in manga, they draw them very much extroverted, very much with a ton of energy, and usually pretty violent. So you're not going to have that comparison. It's not a fair comparison to make. You're making this game for your particular audience. So of course, even if it's still a violent game, it's going to be toned down in comparison to something crazy like Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto is known to be insane. They know that. Everybody in the US knows that. That doesn't mean you're going to start taking cars and running people over because you saw it happen in Grand Theft Auto. Again, it's been debunked so many times. The fact that he's even trying to do this is stupid. So it says GTA offers a very large map where you can act freely, he detailed. But in Like a Dragon, the franchise's original Japanese name, you operate in a tight and dense space where you enjoy a story. And just to be clear, that's just how Japanese games are, right? Like they're very story-centric. You know, American games, they are starting to become that little by little, but the Japanese take it very seriously with their storytelling. So you're going to get a ton of cutscenes. If anybody's played any Japanese RPG, you already know there's 1,000,001 cutscenes talking about the story. So this should be, again, it's cultural differences. It was here ostensibly thanks to the general relevance to both franchises that Yokoyama turned to directly address the topic of violence in video games, noting that his concern over such content stemmed from those moments when you see mass bad things on TV and you learn that the author was playing at home. The producer then opined, it's a very complex problem, but I think we can't say that video games don't have an influence because unlike a novel or a film, they allow you to have an immersive experience. So I think that's when creating video games that contain violence or Yakuza stories, it's imperative to think about the effects that this can have on players, he further declared. That's bullshit, bro, because a lot of books and a lot of manga and a lot of everything they have, like you can very easily create a visual reference in your mind, right? A lot of people, when they're reading these books, they create these characters in their mind through the descriptions of the author. So whatever way the author described the character in, fair skin, whatever, they are able to create it in their mind how that character looks. Whether or not they see it on screen in a movie or a TV show, that's different. But you can still get plenty of imagination coming from a book. So the fact that you're trying to say, oh, since video games are an immersive experience, that's bullshit, bro. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all because there is way more evidence against that than there is for that. And I mean way more. Like you're talking 99% to 1%. It's not even close. So it says, to this end, Yokoyama then explained that in deference to the supposedly harmful effects these stories can have on players, the plots of the Yakuza series have gradually moved away from purely Yakuza themes to focus on social issues, and the story no longer only concerns the underworld. Having the word Yakuza in the English title harms sales in Japan, the producer detailed. Japanese society is going to get tougher and tougher towards Yakuza. In the past, we can only talk about it on television, but it has become a taboo word. As noted above, despite making this claim, Yokoyama presented no concrete evidence to support his claim that fictional media is influencing audiences to commit unsavory acts, and that's likely for one simple reason: it doesn't actually exist. And that's exactly my point. Again, the article goes, you should read the article. It goes into different studies that have been done over decades, okay, literally since the early 2000s, decades of studies about the fact that video games do not affect violent behavior. It's been proven time and time again, and you're gonna have people that are still gonna try to push this narrative about violence affecting people, and it's just stupid. It really, really is stupid. So if that's the case, violent movies affect, people violently. Like there is no correlation. There never has been, and there never will be. And they really need to stop using this as a crutch to try to de-violence video games or to try to shame other people who make violent video games. It's stupid. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. And if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.